Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spark to shine in the quiet spaces between our thoughts, where the world no longer shouts and the soul begins to whisper. We find a truth too often forgotten, that life is not a race to be won, but a rhythm to be remembered. Each trial, each triumph, each tear and trembling breath is not random, but woven with precision into a sacred tapestry, guided by a hand unseen yet deeply felt. In 2025, when noise masquerades as clarity and speed is mistaken for purpose, the real revolution lies in stillness. To focus on oneself is not selfish, it is sacred. To stay silent is not weakness, it is wisdom tuning itself to a higher frequency. Just as the moon does not rush to shine, nor the tree to grow, you too are unfolding exactly as you must. Let your silence become your sanctuary, your focus a prayer. Because even the stars remain silent, yet they guide entire galaxies. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is speaking, but no one is truly listening. The volume is high, but the meaning is low. It's the world we've built, filled with opinions, noise, endless notifications. And in the middle of it, something inside you whispers, "Step back." But instead, we lean in, thinking if we just say more, post more, explain more, maybe we'll finally feel heard. Maybe we'll feel seen. But there's a deeper truth, one we've forgotten in our pursuit of relevance. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence in its purest form. In the same way that music is defined not just by the notes, but by the pauses between them, our lives are not made whole by constant doing or constant speaking. We are made whole by the spaces in between, by the stillness we allow ourselves to enter when we finally stop performing and start being. Most of us are afraid of silence because we've been conditioned to see it as a void, something empty. But silence, real silence, is profoundly full. Full of truth, full of clarity, full of power. And in 2025, as the world grows louder, more opinionated, more reactive, silence becomes not just a refuge, but a form of quiet resistance. Think of nature. The most sacred processes happen in silence. Trees grow without applause. Seeds split open underground without witnesses. The sun rises in silence each morning, and the stars burn billions of miles away without making a sound, yet their presence is undeniable. Why do we think our becoming must be loud to be real? You see, when we speak from a place of noise, we often speak out of fear of being misunderstood, of being left behind, of not being enough. But when we allow ourselves the discipline of silence, we begin to hear something else, a deeper voice. The one that doesn't need to prove or compare or compete, the one that simply is. And that voice, the quiet, centered one, is where your truth lives. Now, I'm not talking about avoidance. I'm not saying stay silent to suppress or to hide. I'm saying choose silence the way a sculptor chooses marble, carefully, deliberately. Let it be the container that holds your intention. Because when you learn to be still, you learn to be selective. You begin to discern what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And that discernment, that's where real power lives. Most people speak because they want to be heard. But wise people remain silent because they're already listening. To the world, to others, and most importantly, to themselves. The silence gives space for the soul to rise. It slows you down just enough to feel where you've been on autopilot. It lets you witness your own patterns, your own stories. That is sacred work. And let me tell you this, silence doesn't mean inaction. It doesn't mean apathy. Silence is the ground from which clarity grows. It's how we gather ourselves before we move forward with intention. Some of the most transformative chapters in your life will not be the ones where you said everything right, but the ones where you paused, stayed quiet, and let your soul catch up with your ambition. I want you to remember something. You are not falling behind by turning inward. You're not losing your voice by choosing not to explain yourself to everyone. You are reclaiming your voice by making it sacred. We live in a world where attention is currency, but presence is treasure, and silence is how we access it. So the next time you're tempted to speak just to fill space, or to post just to stay visible, or to argue just to be right, ask yourself, is this adding meaning or is it just adding volume? And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Let silence hold the question for a while. It always knows what to do with unanswered things. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be louder than the world. You were meant to be deeper than it. We spend so much time looking outward, seeking answers, seeking approval, seeking direction. It starts early. We're taught to measure ourselves by what others expect, what others applaud, what others reward, and somewhere along the way, we start to believe that our worth is something handed to us by the world instead of something that already lives inside us. But the truth is, no amount of external affirmation can replace the guidance of an inner compass, that quiet sense of knowing, that pull you feel when something is right, even if it doesn't make sense on paper, or that heaviness in your chest when something looks perfect but feels wrong. That's not confusion. That's wisdom asking for your attention. Focusing on yourself isn't self centered, it's self honoring. It's choosing to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. And in a time like 2025, when everyone seems to be living louder and faster, this choice becomes more than a preference, it becomes a necessity. We've been tricked into believing that productivity is the same as purpose. That more noise means more value. But purpose isn't found by chasing more, it's found by going deeper. Let me tell you something real. You can follow every trend, every piece of advice, every popular path, and still feel completely lost. Because the truth is, no one else can define what's meaningful to you. That is sacred internal work. And it doesn't come from mimicking someone else's journey. It comes from creating space to hear your own voice. You know the one I'm talking about. The voice that isn't frantic or loud. Slay isn't frantic or loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It's steady, still, often drowned out by everything else. But it's always there. That voice is the truest version of you. And most of us spend years avoiding it. Not because we don't trust it, but because we're afraid of what it might ask us to change. It might ask you to let go of what's familiar, to leave something that looks good but no longer fits, to slow down in a world that idolizes speed. It might ask you to grow, to become. And that kind of becoming often requires silence, solitude, and an unwavering trust in yourself. That's the paradox. We spend so much of our lives trying to be seen and understood by others, yet we rarely take the time to see and understand ourselves. And the longer we live disconnected from our inner world, the more easily we're influenced by everything around us. That's how people end up in careers they hate, relationships that drain them, routines that numb them. They're not living, they're performing. And that performance becomes exhausting, not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons. So, how do we return to the truth? By coming home to ourselves. Not in a grand, dramatic gesture, but in the small, intentional choices we make every day. Taking 5 minutes to breathe before reacting, saying no when your body tightens instead of expands. Listening to your own intuition even when it contradicts the crowd. That's what it means to focus on yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. Because when you focus inward, you start to live with alignment. And alignment is when your values, your choices, and your energy all start to move in the same direction. That's when life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a flow. Not because it gets easier, but because it gets clearer. And once you experience that clarity, once you've tasted that peace, it becomes easier to let go of the distractions. The need to explain yourself, the need to be liked, the need to prove you're enough, because you finally understand. You don't need anyone else to validate what already feels true. You just need the courage to trust it. So in 2025, while the world continues to accelerate, pause. While everyone else chases more, go inward. Not because you're falling behind, but because you're finally choosing to walk in rhythm with yourself. Because you are the only one who can live your life. And if you don't trust your inner compass, someone else will hand you theirs and call it your truth. And that's the quiet tragedy we're here to avoid. So trust the pull, trust the stillness, trust the whisper that says, this way, even if no one else hears it. Because your direction doesn't need to be loud to be right. We are so conditioned to measure progress by how much we can check off, how fast we can move, how far ahead we are compared to someone else. But life doesn't work like that. Growth doesn't follow a straight line. And becoming who you're meant to be, truly deeply meant to be, isn't something you rush. It's something you allow. We talk about timing like it's a clock we control. But have you ever stopped to wonder why certain things didn't happen when you wanted them to, even though you were ready, or at least you thought you were? And then, months or even years later, something shifted. The opportunity came, the moment unfolded, and this time, you were actually ready, on a level you couldn't have seen before. That's what I mean when I say your journey is sacred, even in its unfolding. There's a divine rhythm at work in your life, and it often doesn't match your calendar. That can be frustrating. especially in a world that celebrates speed. But speed doesn't guarantee depth, and achievement doesn't always equal fulfillment. Some of the most profound chapters of your life won't look like success from the outside. They'll look like waiting, like letting go, like letting go, like confusion, like silence. But in those in between spaces, something real is happening. The soil is being prepared, the roots are going deeper, the foundation is being laid, not just for what you want, but for the version of you that will be strong enough to carry it when it comes. You're not behind, you're not lost, you're in the middle of becoming. And becoming isn't always visible, it's not always validated. In fact, most of the sacred work happens in private, away from the applause, the metrics, the feedback. Quote, it happens when you choose to stay instead of run, when you reflect instead of react, when you hold yourself accountable with no one watching. That's where your life starts to take shape, from the inside out. The inside out. I think one of the biggest sources of suffering in our time is the belief that we're supposed to be somewhere other than where we are. But what if right now, in this exact moment, you're not late, you're on time, you're not missing the mark, you're being refined, or being refined. You're not stuck, you're being still for a reason. Maybe the silence isn't a punishment, it's protection. Maybe the delay isn't rejection, it's redirection. Maybe the no you heard 6 months ago was simply making room for a better Jesus you couldn't imagine yet. The sacredness of your journey isn't found in how much ground you cover, it's found in how present you are to the ground you're standing on. The lessons are already here. The healing is already happening. The wisdom is already within you. You don't have to earn your place in the world by speeding up. You earn it by waking up to the life that's already unfolding around you. When we start to see our lives this way, everything softens. We stop asking, why is this taking so long? And we start asking, what is this season asking of me? We stop blaming the world for not moving fast enough and start listening for what we haven't yet noticed within ourselves. This kind of patience isn't passive, it's powerful. It says, I trust that my time will come, and I will be ready when it does. It's not about complacency. It's about confidence, quiet, rooted, unshakable confidence. You don't need to explain your pace to anyone. You don't need to perform your growth for applause. You don't need to manufacture momentum just to prove you're moving. There's a difference between motion and meaning, between action and alignment. So if this year feels slower than you expected, good. That means there's space to realign, to deepen, to ask better questions, to hear the truth beneath all the noise. And if no one sees that progress, if it's invisible to the outside world, that doesn't make it any less real. In fact, it probably means you're exactly where you need to be. Because the most meaningful transformations often happen in silence, in shadows, and in stillness, before the world ever catches up to the light you've been cultivating all along. So take a breath. Release the timeline. Stop measuring your life by how quickly you arrive, and start honoring the path that's rising to meet you, step by quiet step, because your life isn't late. It's right on time. We live in a time where visibility is everything. If it's not seen, it's not valued. If it's not shared, it's not real. We're told that to matter, we need to make noise, to show progress, to constantly be in motion. But the truth is, not all growth is loud, and not everything important is meant to be witnessed. In fact, some of the most powerful transformations you'll ever experience will happen in complete silence. Quiet, unseen, uncelebrated. Think about it. When a seed is planted, it disappears into the soil. There's no applause, no spotlight, no certainty that it will even grow. So giddy will even grow. But below the surface in the dark, something sacred is happening. Roots begin to push down before the stem ever rises up. That seed is becoming something, but only in silence. It's the same with us. Before anything meaningful takes shape on the outside, something must first shift on the inside. That shift is quiet. It doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't ask for permission. It just begins. But we get impatient. We confuse visibility with validation. We want the change we're making to be seen, documented, proven. We want to show the world, look, I'm healing, I'm evolving, I'm better now. But not everything is meant to be shared in real time. Some things are too tender, too personal, too holy to be put on display. You don't dig up a seed every day to check if it's growing. You trust that the process is doing its work, even when you can't see it. In 2025, when people are showcasing their lives like highlight reels and measuring their value in likes and shares, the radical move is to protect your process. Keep your growth sacred. Let it be yours before it belongs to anyone else. There is something deeply liberating about not having to explain where you are or what you're doing. You're not obligated to narrate your healing to anyone. You don't need to justify your solitude or your silence. Just because someone can't see your progress doesn't mean it isn't happening. Silence is not stagnation, it's gestation, where things mature, where ideas deepen, where strength is built without the pressure of performance. The best parts of who you're becoming are being shaped when no one's watching. And that's not a flaw in the process. It is the process. We're so used to fast turnarounds and instant results that we've forgotten the value of quiet effort. The kind of effort that doesn't come with a trophy, but changes everything. Like choosing to forgive someone who never said sorry. Like sitting with yourself long enough to understand your own patterns. Like breaking a cycle that's existed in your family for generations without telling a soul. Those are victories, monumental ones. But they don't always come with fanfare. And that's okay. Because growth isn't about what the world sees, it's about who you become when no one's clapping. The question isn't, are people noticing? The question is, am I becoming more whole, more grounded, more aligned, even if no one sees? When we detach our progress from performance, we begin to trust ourselves in a deeper way. We begin to honor what's real over what's visible. We no longer need the world's applause to validate our becoming. This is the beauty of quiet growth. It doesn't seek attention, it seeks truth. It seeks truth. It's not rushed by the clock or swayed by comparison. It unfolds when it's ready, and when it's ready, it will speak for itself, not through words, but through presence, through energy, through the way you carry yourself differently. So if you're in a season that feels invisible, if you're doing work no one sees, if you're healing in ways that can't be posted or explained, trust it. You're not falling behind. You're laying foundations. Don't underestimate the strength it takes to grow in silence. It means you're choosing depth over display. And in a world so quick to broadcast, that's a quiet kind of bravery. Protect your becoming. Let it breathe, let it ripen, let it be yours, because what grows in silence eventually speaks the loudest. If you really think about it, energy is the most valuable thing you have. More than time, more than money. Because time can be filled with anything, but your energy decides what actually comes to life. Where your energy goes, your life flows. It's what fuels your thoughts, your creativity, your presence, your relationships. And the hard truth is, not everything or everyone deserves access to it, but we forget that. Especially in a world that demands so much of us, all the time. Respond to this, react to that, engage here. Defend yourself there. It's endless. And before we know it, we're drained. Not because we did too much, but because we gave our energy to the wrong things. Focusing on yourself isn't just about solitude or silence. It's also about stewardship. It's about protecting the life force that makes you you. Your attention, your emotional availability, your presence, these aren't small things. These are sacred currencies. And in 2025, with all the noise, all the distraction, all the pressure to stay visible and connected, the wisest thing you can do is ask, what truly deserves my energy? Not everything requires a response. Not every invitation needs a yes. Not every opinion about you needs to be corrected. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. There's a moment in every journey when you realize that your peace is too expensive to trade for temporary validation. Your clarity is more important than someone else's comfort. That your energy is not a bottomless resource. It's a sacred trust, and you get to decide who and what gets to share in it. And that's where boundaries come in. That's where boundaries come in. Not walls, not defensiveness, but boundaries born from clarity. When you know who you are, you stop letting the world pull you in 100 directions. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. You start choosing your presence with purpose. That means sometimes saying no when it would be easier to say yes. Sometimes not replying to the message. Not defending your choices. Not attending the gathering that feels out of alignment with where you are. Not because you're distant or cold, but because you're finally honoring your energy. Don't talk about this enough. There's a quiet kind of burnout that happens when we spend too much of our lives explaining ourselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding us. Or trying to win the approval of those who don't even know how to see us fully. That kind of energy drain doesn't just exhaust you, it disconnects you from yourself. The more you chase being understood, the more you betray your own clarity. The more you explain, the more you dilute. At some point, the most powerful thing you can do is simply be and let your presence speak for itself. And it will. When you conserve your energy and invest it in the right places, into your healing, into your creativity, into people who pour back into you, your life begins to change. Your life begins to change. Not because everything around you shifts, but because you shift. You start walking differently, speaking differently, choosing differently. People can feel when you've stopped leaking energy, when you're no longer available for chaos, when you're no longer performing for acceptance. There's a kind of calm that comes over someone who has made peace with not being everything to everyone, and that calm, that's power. So the question isn't, am I doing enough? The question is, am I giving my energy to what truly matters? You don't need to attend every battle. You're invited to. You don't need to carry stories that aren't yours. You don't need to explain your piece to people who only understand noise. Your energy is finite. Your presence is precious. And your focus is a form of devotion to yourself, to your path, to what's being quietly built beneath the surface. It's okay to protect that. It's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to not show up everywhere just to prove you're still relevant. You're not here to be consumed. You're here to be consumed. You're here to become. And becoming takes energy. It takes all of you. And the more you protect that energy from the distractions that drain it, the more clearly you'll see where it's actually meant to go. So as you move through this year, ask yourself, not what am I missing, but what am I allowing that's costing me more than it gives back? And if the answer leads you to silence, to solitude, to saying no a little more often, good. That's not withdrawal. That's alignment. That's wisdom. Because where you spend your energy is where you're building your life. There's something humbling about stepping outside at night, looking up, and seeing a sky full of stars. There's no rush, no noise, no explanation, just presence, stillness, wonder. And in that moment, if you really let yourself feel it, you remember, you're part of something much bigger than yourself. We forget that sometimes we get caught up in the immediacy of things. The pressure to succeed, the deadlines, the distractions, the noise of being constantly on. We zoom in so close to our own story that we lose sight of the fact that we're even in a story, that there's a much greater narrative unfolding, one far beyond what we can see. You were never meant to carry everything alone. You were never meant to have all the answers. Because your life isn't random. It's not a series of accidents. It's a thread in a vast, intricate tapestry. And every decision, every season, even the delays and the detours, especially the detours, are part of that sacred design. When we start to see ourselves that way, as participants in something cosmic, something purposeful, it changes how we move through the world. It shifts our questions. We stop asking, why is this happening to me? And we start asking, what is this trying to awaken in me? That one question can change everything, because there's a reason why that door closed, a reason why that plan fell through, a reason why you were drawn to something you couldn't explain, only to find it shaped you in ways you didn't see coming. There is a rhythm beneath all of this, and when you slow down, when you get still, you begin to hear it. You begin to feel it. And that rhythm is calling you into alignment with something bigger than comfort, bigger than achievement, even bigger than success. It's calling you into belonging. You belong to this moment. You belong to your path. And you belong to the greater whole. And here's the thing. Your role in all of this, it matters. Even if it feels small. Even if no one else sees it. Because no one else can live your life. No one else can bring your voice, your lens, your quiet strength into this world. You're not just here to get through the day. You're here to contribute to something eternal. And sometimes the most powerful contribution is made not through what you say or what you do, but through who you choose to be when no one's watching. That's where integrity lives. That's where purpose is born. You see, we're all threads in this living fabric, connected, interwoven. What you heal in yourself echoes into the people around you. What you learn in silence becomes wisdom for someone else down the road. Even the battles you fought in private, the ones you thought no one would understand, those carry weight. They carry resonance. Because when you come through something, you carry a kind of light that others can feel, even if they never know the story behind it. You're not separate from the universe. You are part of the universe becoming conscious of itself. Your stillness, your focus, your choice to stay grounded in a world that constantly tries to scatter your attention, that's a sacred act. And it all matters. In fact, nothing is wasted. Not the missed opportunities, not the heartbreak, not the silence. It's all shaping you into someone who is able to walk with more depth, more grace, more compassion. Someone who doesn't just survive, but who sees. And in that seeing offers presence in a way the world deeply needs right now. Because what the world doesn't need more of is noise. It needs more people who are awake, more people who are awake, more people who are rooted in themselves, who know how to pause, how to listen, how to lead from within. And that starts with you recognizing that your existence isn't an accident. It's an assignment, one that only you can fulfill, not by striving harder, not by being louder, but by being true. So yes, protect your energy. Embrace your silence, trust your timing. But don't lose sight of this. Everything you're doing, every time you choose alignment over approval, peace over performance, stillness over chaos, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the frequency of everything around you. You are part of a living, breathing, sacred design. And the more you align with it, the more clearly you begin to see. The universe doesn't just include you, it moves through you.